We had the sound maybe not working. No?
Now it is.
Now it's working.
No.
Okay, should we start over?
You missed some wisdom that would change your life.
All right, now we've got sound. How does it sound? Now we're good? All right, let's ask that question again, Maddie. So
just let me clarify. We're live on two different streams here, so I think only one of us had audio, so we're going to go back
we'll just
we'll try to give the same answer.
We'll try to give the same answer, but we'll introduce ourselves as well. Do again. So we're trying to do two separate live things right now. Generosity Series on their Facebook page and the Kimbia Facebook page, and we obviously think we're technical people, but maybe not so much. So we're here today just talking, having a peer-to-peer jam session. We put it out on social yesterday for people to submit some questions. We got some great questions submitted into us, and so we got a girl, Maddie, here who is moderating and asking the questions.
All right, why don't we get started? All right, what if I want to do peer-to-peer but don't want to have a run or other type of sporting event?
I think I just had a deja vu.
Yeah, I feel like we talked about this. I think there's a lot of opportunity now. Everyone's talking about DIY fundraising, and I think more and more organizations are starting to actually pick this up. A lot of organizations are starting to not even want to do a physical event anymore and simply just go at peer-to-peer from a do-it-yourself perspective, where you give the supporter of your organization the ability to kind of choose how they want to fundraise for you. So whether that's donating their birthday or having a backyard barbecue or even having a larger or virtual event that your organization is putting on, and then having people have little local satellite meetups, I think is an interesting way to do that. You work with a lot of organizations that do your run, obviously.
Yeah. So I think that you need to have a lot of options, I think, in general, especially if you're a medium, larger size organization, because there are certain people that want an event and certain people want a particular type of event, whether it's a run or as opposed to a biking event or something like that. But so you need to have different options. The virtual, I think, is a great option. You don't have to worry about calendaring. It's usually cheaper. And the DIY, just let people do their own thing. There are places for that. I don't think physical events are going to go away. There's a reason people want to be there. People want the feel, and there's also, you're going to get a lot of brand out of that for your organization, get your mission out there in front of more people, make an impact in a community, and just have the experience of people doing things. So there are going to be people that always want to do that, and there are other people I just want to raise money, and those are great, because that's why we find a lot of times in the virtual events, people are more connected to the organization. They're not looking for a fun day out. They just want to help their organization. So you got to give them those options, whether that's DIY or something.
Hey, maybe we answered it better that time.
Yeah. Things change. It's a very fast-moving field,
This is very impromptu.
All right. When should I start marketing my event and reaching out to potential participants?
Yes.
So I've got a couple of different thoughts on this. I think it kind of depends on if you're trying to start recruiting people. Let's say you have a run, and at the end of that run, you're trying to recruit people to go ahead and sign up the next year. That's one way to kind of tap them then, and then, let them kind of get going, get registered at least. Then what I like to say is really, I think about 10, 11 weeks out, you might want to start kind of soft launching the campaign and communicating to people who are maybe your team captains, your volunteers, your biggest advocates, because they can help, honestly, even work some of the kinks out of your event if you're launching a website, a peer-to-peer website with it. And they can also start helping to get the word out and get those numbers on the thermometer up. Then I think, we were talking about this yesterday, Dave, 8 weeks minimum to start doing it. That's kind of the tail end of when you should start communicating to donors, potential participants about registration, and start to get the word out there.
Yeah, I think we used to say that it's never too early to get started, but I think there's probably at some point where it's too early because you don't get enough momentum building to the right time. But what I do think is especially if you have a live event or a day, maybe it's a giving day, I think it's more so with live events to get the date out there early, because there are, if you start marketing a little bit later in the game, people are like, oh, if I knew about that, I definitely would have done that, but now I'm going away or I'm traveling or I've done some other event. So getting dates out there, especially if it's a repeat event, as soon as you're done with your first one, get the date out, get to your participants, let them know, here's what we're doing next year, get signed up now, and then, sort of then wave it out in different, you're going to have, usually, you get it out there, you're going to get a crush of people registering, and then it's going to lull a little bit and then roll it again. So I think, in live events, 4 months, depends how, if you're talking a serious endurance event, you're not going to do a super marathon and let people know 6 weeks in advance when they can't train or something like that. But barring that, I think sort of, getting it out 4 months in advance, as a slow roll, I think it's a great point, though. Like, getting out in the beginning, you're going to get most likely the people that are close to the organization. Yeah. So if there are kinks or things that are going wrong, they're going to let you know, hey, this isn't working well or this isn't right. So you can fine tune it by the time you launch for everyone else.
Yeah, and something that I see is effective too, like Dave said, is really just start, even if you don't have registration for the event open, get the date out there and start teasing it. And if you've had an event before and you've got videos from that event, that's a great way to get people excited about it, to almost like build that anticipation. I like to talk about how it's like, that's what products that we buy do. That's what, when there's a new iPhone coming out, you start seeing these commercials, it's coming, and it builds up the excitement. I think we as humans really, we like that anticipation. And it helps to kind of build that excitement, build that buzz. And then when you actually do have it live, people are like, okay, I'm ready to go. Yeah.
All right, next question. What's the best way to get those who are running or biking to convince others to donate other than nagging?
I'll start. First of all, I think there's a fine line between nagging. First of all, not everything you're sending people, they're actually seeing or reading. Yeah. So we feel like we may be nagging. And there is a point where it gets too much, right? But what's nagging is something that's very persistent and probably repetitive. So if you're sending the same thing over and over again all the time, it's like the mother telling the kid all the time the same thing, and it just shuts down. So, but if you're switching it up and you're sort of, spacing it out, I think, you're going to hopefully push away from nagging and just being sort of properly persistent, to coin a phrase. And I think that we have to understand that as fundraisers, the average person takes 3 or 4 asks before they give, because we live in a very busy world. We're all busy. There's a lot of cat videos on the internet, right? And people have jobs and families and things to do. So a lot of times they want to. I had a friend, the guy who was a friend of mine, he runs produce in my supermarket, right? He told me he was doing a run. I said, oh, send me your link. He sent it to me. I got busy. I forgot. He sent it again. I didn't see it. I went into the supermarket. I saw it. I was like, oh, man. I ended up giving him cash. I wanted to give, and I'm in this world, and we're busy. So, you can be a nag, and people don't want that. But if you're sort of slower about it, realizing people are not seeing everything, and switch it up. If you're doing an endurance thing, and, you could talk a little bit about your training, just let you know, thanks for everyone supporting me. I'm at the 15-mile mark or whatever else it is. So I think that there's sort of this fine line, and you have to just be careful.
Yeah. I also think it's about coaching your participants on how to ask based on their angle as to why they're participating in the event of yours. So if someone is coming back and doing the event year over year because they have a personal connection to the mission, coach that person on sharing their story about that personal connection, because I don't think that really ever comes off as nagging when you've got a very personal connection. I also think, and I used to do a lot of like long bike ride events and running events, and it was hard the first time I made an ask, but then it's like once people started donating, it got easier. And then, what I did is, for me, when I signed up for my first big bike ride event, it was a huge challenge. Like I was just a total couch potato at the time. And so for me, I really played up the challenge aspect of it. And my friends and family thought that was really cool that I was, gonna ride 100 miles. Right. So I think it kind of depends
on... In a car or in a bike?
Yeah, in a car. Oh. Still a couch potato. Yeah. You haven't seen one of those events still happening?
I'm signing up.
Yeah, that one was easy. Easy training. So I think that, coach your participants based on kind of why they are participating in your event.
Yeah, I think people sort of have their antenna up. If they're getting like a canned email, it's your friend, and you're basically sending them, something that's canned. They know you, and it's not personal. And maybe that is maybe. And
make it personal, and also coach your participants to reach out to their different friends and family in the way that they know that person likes to communicate. Right. So if I've got a friend who we mostly text each other, like I'll probably send a text. If it's grandma, I'm going to call her. Mm-hmm. If it's my mom, when we're over having dinner, I'm going to ask, So I think it's kind of make the ask in based on the relationship that you have with that individual.
Right. And I want to follow up. One thing that you said I think is important is the beginning is always the hardest. Like getting the first time you're doing it and getting over that hump. So we always encourage people to go closest to home first, right? Start with your mom, your sister, your coworkers, your good friends, because you'll see that you could do it. It'll get money up on your page. You'll sort of get the energy. You'll know I can do this, and then you'll sort of be able to move on and be customized about going to other people.
All right. Yes, the next question, this is a good one. Everyone is telling me that I need to engage millennials. How can I do this with a peer-to-peer fundraising? Do you think peer-to-peer is a good way to do that, or should I focus elsewhere?
Yes, peer-to-peer is absolutely a good way to engage millennials because it's a very socially driven campaign. When we think about peer-to-peer, where it's like you've got a personal website, you can share it on Facebook, you can share it on all of the social media channels that you're on. We actually just did a study that we released like last week and noticed that we looked at demographics of donors that are giving to different types of campaigns. And when it came to peer-to-peer, peer-to-peer had the youngest donors out of other types of online giving channels that we looked at, compared to just everyday general donations on your website and compared to giving days. So I do think peer-to-peer is a great way to engage that audience. I also think that audience likes to have it be as easy as possible to do from their phone. And I think that if you're going to think about doing a peer-to-peer campaign, make sure your mobile experience is really good, because that's kind of the way that they just want to do things. I also think making it, if you have an opportunity to somehow make it project-based, there's been studies that show that, that age demographic really resonates with having like some project to do, something to show. So
I'll give you the shout out. Where do you get the study from? Somebody wants to take a look at that study.
Oh yeah. It's on Kimbia.com. Go to resources, go to Kimbia.com, go to resources, and go to ebooks, and we have it there. It's the 2016 donor data trends.
So I would say on this, it's one of my things. I actually have a talk that I give called the Millennial Malaise with a question mark, because I don't really think it exists. I think millennials are people, and every generation has a different challenge. I don't buy into the laziness thing. I don't buy into any of this stuff. They're different, just lazy. They're different, just like, I wish I could say something. They're different. Every generation has different challenges, and they come from different places, and they bring their uniqueness. And I think that one of the unique things about millennials is they like to do things together. They like to do stuff mobile. They like to accomplish something. And they are great participants. Some of the stats show they're not the greatest donors, but again, a lot of them haven't hit their stride yet in where they are in their careers and things like that. So they may not have as much disposable income. What they are great at doing is getting other generations to give to them. So the studies basically show that they're sort of funding up. So they do stuff peer-wise, but that may be more, they'll do an event with somebody, but they're raising more money from their parents, their aunts, their uncles, and those types of people. I think that they bring energy. I get very upset about the whole millennial thing. I work with so many of them. I've got kids who are millennials. I don't see it. That's not like a study. Obviously there are things out there, but I think that just, and giving them options also. They want different ways to do things. They're individuals. And I do agree that I think probably the most solid point is they want to accomplish something. They want to be able to. So if you have, we're raising $50,000 to build this playground for the kids in the neighborhood, they want to be part of that and then show them that they can get to that success.
Yeah.
So,
I also think there's a large gap in the millennial age group.
right.
So like there's a 24-year-old and then there's a 35-year-old. And then according to whatever source you're looking at in terms of what the age segment is for a millennial, like I'm a very old millennial. So it's like sometimes according to some things I'm considered a millennial and in some areas I'm not a millennial. So I think there's differences between an old millennial like me
That's a great
and
point.
a young millennial
That's a very good
who,
point.
is in a different place in their life. Like I've got kids and other commitments, and I am further along in my career so I might want to receive messaging to me in kind of a different way than a 24-year-old who isn't as tied down to things in life and things like that. They might have less money at this point, but they might have more time to go out and get their friends to like go do things. So that's why I think project-based, kind of based on looking at segments of ages within the millennial range.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I don't really think I've heard people make that point, that we say millennials are talking 12,
everyone thinks like,
years,
oh, these
and
lazy
they're all the
millennials.
same, and they're in different places. I mean, I think the best definition that I've seen in terms of putting aside all the years and categories is they never knew a world without this, having your life in your phone. And that gets back to the mobile point.
I had my first phone was a Zach Morris phone.
Right. My first phone was a beeper.
I had a beeper too.
Right.
I had a beeper in high school.
I wasn't a drug dealer, but
Pinky's pagers.
when my wife was pregnant with my first few kids, we didn't have cell phones, and he had a beeper, and he went to the pay phone. So
Right. Next question. What's your number one tip for retention of participants?
I think it comes down to making participants feel really good about what they did. I think it's about reward and rewarding their positive behavior and impact that they've made on your organization. And that can come in a variety of ways. At the end of the day, I think, and Dave likes to talk about psychology a lot too, I think that people get involved with peer-to-peer events and fundraising because they either care about the mission, they want a challenge, and ultimately at the end of the day, it's a little bit like selfish because you get a good feeling out of it. You get a high, right? So I think rewarding that and making people feel propped up and feel really good about what they did is what's going to get people coming back year after year. I think that's kind of part of the psychology around it. So I think recognizing people publicly for what they did, shout outs on social media and things like that. Like people just like to get attention and to feel rewarded. And I think that's a big part of it when it comes to the psychology of it.
Right. So I would agree with that. I think in general, it's like thank them, reward them, recognize them. But to the extent that you can do that individually, not everybody, but there are different segments. Certain people need different types of record, did different things. They're your top fundraiser, or they did better than they did last year. And I think also the same idea of letting them know what they accomplished. You changed the life of 6 children, who were eating every day because of what you did. Show them that's not just for millennials; it's for everybody.
Yeah.
We want to know, where is that money going? How are we impacting? And I think if you're having live events with repeat, participants, grab them early, and also you got to sort of change the experience, right? Unless you have one of these crazy things, and even if you have like your Tough Mudders, the repeat participants, if you're a second year, you get a different badge or it's a bandana, a certain color, so people know, look at that guy, he's been doing it 5 years, and they get separate crazy, obstacles, like they can get even more suicidal obstacles than anyone else because you've done it 5 years in a row. So you're not coming always to the same event necessarily, or maybe you are, and getting different recognition, and that could be, as much as, we want to call up to the front of the start line our 5-year repeating participants. Let's get them up there and let's hear it for them, because that, like you said, it's sort of ego. It could be good ego. You're changing the world.
Right.
That's good. We'll take it. And recognizing people, we do stuff with sort of, we do fundraiser badges and things like that, where, sort of you can recognize other people. Like we have one of our things we give out is this little different, but it is a recognition thing. It's the top fundraiser. It's the fundraising superhero. So you have this poly silk cape, with a thing, and we give it out before the event. And usually that person will actually run or walk in the event with it on, and they'll check them out, and that's cool, and I wish I can get that or something like that. So I think that the recognition and changing up their experience so that they want to come back.
Yeah, and making it fun.
Yeah.
Like, people like fun.
Yeah, fun is good.
Make it fun.
Put the fun in fundraising.
Don't be a stick in the mud.
Right?
Okay. What do I do with donors of my peer-to-peer event?
I do with donors. So that's an interesting one and a question that I hear a lot. I think that there's kind of a couple of different schools of thought. Is, they gave often to the participant and not to the organization. So I think there's a school of thought as to I really can't touch them. But I also think there's a school of thought, and I actually lean more towards this, is that is an opportunity to get them excited about your event. If they donated in your event, maybe then you can kind of warm them up, butter them up, cultivate them with some messages about how the donation made an impact to your organization. And then instead of necessarily asking them for another donation in your next communication with them, ask them if they want to participate in the event. Now, you might want to do a little bit of a segmenting. If you've got a virtual event, you can kind of ask anyone. If you've got a physical event, you want to look at donors that were actually in the area of your event, right? But I do think that that's one way to start to slowly get them involved without feeling like, if I donate to my friend, now I'm going to start getting nagged by this organization. Because I've had people tell me that when I've been doing peer-to-peer events as a participant. They're like, can you just tell them I don't want mail? I want to give to you, but tell them I don't get mail. I don't want mail. So I think there's kind of a fine balance. Chris, on your thoughts on that?
Yeah. So there obviously sometimes there could be compliance issues. You can't be spamming out everybody that you got their email. So putting that stuff aside, we'll leave that for the experts. I do agree. There's sort of this, the question of, do I own that information, or that's my participant? And I think that, like anything else, you have to segment. You have to look at, who are these people that maybe we want to at least think about, maybe some number that's way off the charts, or some people who gave more than average, or people that are giving every year to a participant. So segmenting, I think, before you even start, assuming you can reach out to these people, segment them. We have an organization that participates in our Philly event. They did a phenomenal job of doing sort of follow-up. All they did was they just sent one email asking if they want to opt in to their newsletter. They didn't ask for money. They didn't ask for participation. And they got some kind of crazy, 65% of the people opted in. And then something like 70% of those gave again to the organization before the event, right? So now they have a connection. And and that's one of the things, that we think is brilliant about peer-to-peer, is it's not just what you're fundraising at the event, which is obviously critical, but it's now, you've got potential. You got all this information, and if you have good data, you could segment that by zip codes, by the people that they gave to, their giving amounts and things like that. So I think that information and then that follow up is critical to making your event successful and turning people not just into donors but supporters.
All right. This is the last question, you
question.
guys.
Bring it home.
What do you think of the decline in the peer-to-peer top 30? Does this mean peer-to-peer will eventually fade away as a fundraising strategy?
You want to take this first?
Sure. Okay. I think the short answer is no. I think the decline, everything, there's so many different reasons that things are happening. There are economic reasons, there's things like that. The decline wasn't tremendous. It wasn't across the board. There's some big risers. There's new events. You see, a lot of the new events are coming up. So, if we were to say that, Run, Walk, Ride is dead, well, how these new events, and Cycle for Survival, and these guys are growing, and even some of the larger ones, and there's room for new players. And we're looking at the top 30. It's, I would say it's like the Dow Jones, but doesn't necessarily mean what's going on. No one else knows what's going on. We're dealing with, guys that probably aren't in the top 30. So we're seeing different things. I just think, things are cyclical. That's a cycling pun, I guess, but the economy changes, people change, approaches changes, and what we see growth in the DIY. So why is that? So people want to do their own things. Maybe they're going to be events now that within an event you could sort of choose your experience or something like that. Like in Disney, you could choose your experience, right? You do what you want to do, where you want to go, and what character you want to eat breakfast with, right? So I think that it's definitely not. Peer-to-peer is life. We live in a peer-to-peer world. We make peer-to-peer decisions. We talk to each other. Look, we're here. We're talking to each other. We're giving advice to our peers. You're not going and watching this on CNN. You don't know those people. You're not relating to them.
One day we'll be talking about
true.
this on
Right.
CNN. That's next year. We're going to get there by 2018.
This is the first step, but
August 2018.
Yeah, I think that so life is peer-to-peer. We're becoming. This is a social commentary, maybe not really literally more connected, but certainly through computers, through mobile and things like that, we're more connected than ever. And it's just a question of rolling with the times, changing the way. Look, Facebook basically got on board to peer-to-peer by allowing people to give through their friends' pages, right? Facebook knows what they're doing. Shout out to you guys, thank you. So if they're not, thinking, oh, this is going to be a good idea, and I don't even know if there's I don't even know if that's a profitable model for them, or it's just something they're putting out there because that's what people need. We need these opportunities. We give to people. We don't give necessarily directly to an organization. We give to people, or we get connected to the organization, to the people we know who've had an experience or, or benefited from the organization. So I don't think peer-to-peer is dead by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah, I think some of these headlines about peer-to-peer declining, it's just like doom and gloom news headlines, in my opinion. I don't think that the peer-to-peer pie is shrinking. I just think that people are starting to preference other types of events. And I also think that the large events that have been around a long time, they just need to figure out a way to innovate and keep people engaged. So I think that when you look at that kind of like top 30 report, we were both at the Peer-to-Peer Forum earlier this year and saw that. I do think that there's kind of a heavy skew with the really, really large ones that have been doing the walks for a long time, kind of in the same way for a long time.
Yeah.
And those ones might be dropping, but like you said, it's like events like Cycle for Survival, Movember, like they're just crushing it, So I think it's thinking through how to innovate. And if you still want to do a walk or a run, that's great. How do you innovate on that and make it exciting again? Connect people to the mission more and that sort of thing. So I kind of just feel like there's not a shrink or a decline in peer-to-peer. I think it's going to continue growing. I think that technology needs to innovate on it more. I think that organizations need to innovate it on more. I liked that when we were at that conference, a woman from LLS was talking about the Light the Night, and that's a program and a walk that's been around for a long time. And I think she was talking about how that was declining, and then they reinvigorated that, and now it's growing again massively, and it's a phenomenal event. So I think there's ways to revive your walk if you feel like, oh, our walk is declining. I think you don't need to scrap it, obviously.
Right.
I think there's ways to revive it, and people just want to see people, again, that's a psychology thing of things. Like, we want to experience new things.
Right.
We might like doing the same thing for several years in a row, and then at some point it's like, ho-hum, right? Like, find another way to engage people or change it up or make it fun or add a new theme to it or something like that. So
yeah, and I think we've been talking about this a lot. Like, unfortunately, the nonprofit world, we lag behind in terms of innovation the for-profit world. So there's good reasons for that. We have to be more circumscribed with how we spend our money and things like that. But so we're sort of behind the curve when it comes to anything innovative in terms of technology and things like that. So eventually we catch up. So what I think now what might be happening is we're sort of, since technology changes so fast, so that sort of speeds up the curve and makes it a little longer. So as we start realizing, hey, we're looking at the bottom line and we're not making as much money, or we don't have as many participants, we've got to change something. And we will. And we have faith in you guys.
yeah. All right. Peace out.
Yeah. Thanks for coming.
Bye. Thanks
Take
for
care.
tuning in.